In March 1968, a few weeks before Dr. King was assassinated, the Kerner Commission declared that white racism, not black anger, was the cause of urban turmoil in America. Now, this was not news to any black person, and certainly not to Dr. King. In the almost 5 years since the March on Washington and his I Have a Dream speech, he had openly talked about his dream becoming a nightmare. In fact, he was speaking on it the night before he was killed. And here we are, 53 years later, still talking about police brutality. Here we are. 53 years later, still talking about violence. Here we are, 53 years later, still talking about poverty. And here we are, 53 years later, still talking about white nationalism. Dr. King was right. This is a nightmare. This is a nightmare that racism built. This is a nightmare that racist institutions perpetuate. And this is a nightmare that America tolerates. The numbers don't lie. Oh, I wish they did. Because if they are correct, the black man is in trouble. Because if they are correct, poor people are in trouble. If these numbers are correct, democracy is in trouble. And if they are correct, America is in trouble. Matthew 25, verses 40 to 45 sums it up. And Jesus said, as you have done unto my brothers and sisters, ye have done unto me. Then he said, depart from me, ye cursed. And then Jesus kind of went into second person and began to describe what the people had done to him and his brothers and sisters. And as I read this, I thought there's only one group of people in America that can say these words, and that's African Americans. And I'm paraphrasing, so don't quote me. I was a stranger in this land, and you didn't welcome me. You beat me, you hung me, and you sold my family away. I was hungry, and you threw me scraps. You made laws to trap me, and you threw me in prison. And then the people came back and said, Lord, we didn't know it was you, Master. When did we see you and not help you? And Jesus said again, then what you didn't do for my brothers and sisters, you didn't do for me. Now this sounds the same, but it's an even deeper response from Jesus. To paraphrase, Jesus said, now I sent my messenger named King. That should have been a big clue. I sent my prophet named King to tell you about yourselves and give you an opportunity to change and right your wrongs. But you killed him and put my brothers and sisters into an even worse situation the next 53 years. And what Jesus is saying is, get away from me, America. What is wrong with you? You will no longer be blessed. And look at COVID-19 is doing to us. Look at what the opioid epidemic is doing to us. Look at what the economic downturn is doing to us. And look at what the last 4 years has done to us. But we can change this outcome. We can change this trajectory. We can change America. And yes, we can change the world. The answer is simple. We already know it. Our main religion is based on it. Other religions, Judaism, Islam, also teach it. It's simple. Love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, we all think we got the love God part right, so I'm not even going to go into that. It's to love thy neighbor as thyself that we can't seem to get a handle on. It doesn't say love your neighbor as long as they look like you. It doesn't say love your neighbor as long as they talk like you. It doesn't say love your neighbor as long as they love like you. And it doesn't say love your neighbor if they don't have as much money as you. Loving your neighbor doesn't judge. Loving your neighbor doesn't segregate. And loving your neighbor doesn't hate. Because if you love God and can still hate your neighbor, you only hate yourself. They cannot coexist. Now, I love America. I served 26 years in the Army defending America. We have an interesting story. We have an amazing story. But roughly every 100 years or so since our founding, democracy is put to the test. We were founded in 1776. In 1861, the Civil War was the first test. We passed that test by ending slavery. We marched on toward a more perfect union. The civil rights movement of the 60s was the second test. We passed that test by passing legislation like the 1964 Civil Rights Act. We marched on toward a more perfect union. Now, this test now is coming at about 50 to 60 year point since the 1960s. Now that's interesting. And one thing I learned in school is that when you start having quizzes and tests closer together, then you're about to finish that course. You are about to test for the final exam. You are about to graduate. I've got 3 points to make about this test we're going through today. 1, we are not going to come to blows about this time. We've got 245 years invested. We all know right from wrong. And as Dr. King would say, the time is always right to do what's right. So, my brothers and sisters, look deep inside. Search your heart. Ask God for guidance. and do what's right. Do the right thing. Secondly, find out who these real agitators are. And just like on the schoolyard, the agitators are usually the weakest loser. And they are usually not around when things go down. With the internet today, these agitators don't even have a face. In most cases, you will never even know who they are. It could be Russia or China or any nefarious actor. And lastly, everybody wants to beat the champion. Everybody wants to take the champion out. And so far, democracy is the champion. And the only way they can beat us is if we beat ourselves. Now, as we complete this MLK Day celebration, I want to leave you with some action items. Democracy is a verb. It means you got to work. You got to take some action. So every once in a while, thank a teacher. Every once in a while, have lunch with someone different than yourself. Every once in a while, listen to an immigrant story. Every once in a while, don't let fear stop you. Every once in a while, seek common ground. Every once in a while, read the Constitution. Every once in a while, pray for our country. And every once in a while, love your neighbor as yourself. And if we do these things, then the real America will finally be born. And we will march on together toward a more perfect union. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims proud on every mountainside. Let freedom ring. Let freedom ring. Let freedom ring. Thank you very kindly.